What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the One More Rep podcast. I'm your host. My name is Joseph Percher. With me this time, my good friend Austin Brown. Before we get rolling, I want to encourage you guys, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video, leave us a comment, even if it's just an emoji for the algorithm. Share it with somebody, share it around with a friend. Let us know what you think. And of course, ring the bell. I'm bringing these podcasts at you guys multiple times a week. Um, Austin, what are you looking at now? 2.5 weeks?
Yeah, man. It's like I'm like looking at days now. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's Monday and we're on Thursday at right at 2.5. So
right
it's
on.
it's the final stretch, man.
So I wanted to, we usually have a little bit of a conversation off air before we get rolling. I forced you into this. I brought you right on to the recording. I wanted to talk a little bit about what you did this past weekend. And if you guys don't follow Austin on Instagram, his tag will be below. Um, and I think what you're doing is really cool. So you're self coaching, you're 2.5 weeks out from the show. I would say from a conditioning standpoint, you're pretty much there. And so you're able to kind of simulate um, what you want your show peak to look like. And you've been, sharing the updates, posting transparently about it on Instagram, which I think is very interesting. So I wanted to ask you about that. So tell me about it as if, I didn't follow your Instagram at all. So starting Friday, I believe, is the first day that you load. You have your days during the week that you're digging really hard, you're pushing hard for conditioning, and then Friday rolls around. Tell me about Friday.
So yeah, like I've been doing that weekly, like we've spoke about on previous podcasts. And then this week, like conditioning's finally to a point where I was like, okay, I can like really play with this and like test out a bit of a peaking strategy. The conditioning is going to be different by showtime, but like I'm lean enough to see if I can nail this setup. So like I ran a little trial peak from Friday through Sunday, and like just it was actually like more stimulating than I thought, because like man, like I was like, it felt like I was competing. I just treated it exactly the same. I try to keep all the variables like exactly like they'll be in Columbus. I didn't do extra shit around the house. Like I like kicked it. Like the kitchen looked like shit. Like it was just like true simulation. So like Friday, big the idea was going into it. The kind of the blueprint was feed heavy Friday, and then pretty low food Saturday to nail that Sunday look. But at this point, my metabolism has like this week it actually took a pretty big shift, and like level of depletion was even lower. So Friday, I mean, I fed like a maniac. I think it was about 10,000 calories in the threes and fat, and probably upwards of 15 to 1700 carb or something like that. And ended the night with just a really big meal. It was like basically I tracked up to 1200 carbs, and then I just had this free for all at night, which was like two Five Guys burgers, fries, can of Pringles, like 10 ounces of cheesecake, probably like a couple bowls of cereal or something. I don't even remember. I'd have to look back. But so in that meal, I started to feel kind of full. But then right before bed, I told Paige, I was like, I'm actually like not bursting full at all, which was crazy to me because I mean, I ate all day, man. Like, and then, so Saturday I wake up, and I had the film of water on from the 40 grams of sodium I had the day prior, but like the pop wasn't there and the pressure wasn't there. Like I told a friend of mine, I was probably 80% full, maybe like 70, like between 70 and 80. It was a better look. Gut was inflamed, obviously, from the food. And I know that. So that's why I always like to do the low day after to lose that gut inflammation, dry out the look. But I was still pretty flat, so I started that day with like 150 carb meals throughout the day, and I was trying to like reach that kind of spilled over really full look. And I introduced some diuresis that day too, so I brought water down like half that day. and used some. I used about like all day. Ended up using a 3/4 tab of Diazide.
Okay.
Um, so like I still was going about the drying off process, which is what I would have did with the lower food, but I kept food in to continue to fill out because I woke up flat. So, and I wanted to achieve that spill by like little at some point during the day. So I kept doing that, and then it never came, but like the every set of pictures kept getting better. I kept getting drier, harder, fuller, but I never got like that gross look that I was like that slightly spilled over look that I was going for. And so that night I ended up doing more food, but I knew from the night prior that what my food choices had my gut really inflamed. And Sunday was quote unquote like the stage look that I was
Go
going
day. Yeah.
yeah. So, like for that larger meal, which ended up being around like 500 carbs, 100 grams of fat, like right before bed, I just went with like a lot easier digestible stuff. So, like if you saw my Instagram, like I had biscuits, Pop Tarts, blueberry or muffins, and let's see, Texas Roadhouse rolls. So,
Go,
like
dude. Nice.
right, right. Yeah, with some butter, some butter on those for some fats, and then all that other stuff. Yeah, it ended up being around that. So at that point, I like, so conditioning kept getting better all day as I got fuller and drier. So I was like looking really good before that meal. And then I ate that meal and I was just like exploding full, which is exactly what I wanted. So, and then I was going to wake up early enough for that morning to be kind of a swing if I needed to, like if I woke up too gross, just dry it off into the stage look, or I woke, vice versa. So I woke up and I was like super dry and like one I could just tell like a little bit of fluid and one pretty good sized meal would have me just like popping really crazy. So I woke up at that like 90% full, but like super dry. But like connection was like okay for check-in pictures. I wasn't just like boom, everything was like, blasting. But so that first meal, I went with like let's see, I think it was 150 carb, 30 fat. Did that, and that like put me right at a really good spot. And then I just had some. I drove to the gym, like I would like drive to the venue, and like I practice a pump with bands. And I could feel that I had like an incredible connection. Pump was really good. Took my sweatshirt off and everything, and like man, I mean, I was like head like throat to ankles veins, like I was extremely full. Like it was honestly like I told my friend, I was like that was probably like a 90-95% peak. Like I was really pleased with the way it turned out. It was different than what I thought I was going to do, but I think I wanted to play around with the Diazide because it's not something I typically use, and I just wanted to see if, because I have to push a ton of food, I just wanted to see if what effect it would have on my physique, and it reacted. It worked really well. The water manipulation and the Diazide. I had a huge rebound today from it. Woke
Yeah,
up,
to be expected. Yeah.
yeah, knew that was coming, but like the look yesterday morning with that, so like I pretty much have like all the notes I need. I know I need an extra day of feeding, so I'm going to be even more depleted at that point. So I'm going to start feeding about 1,200 carbs and like 200 grams of fat 3 days out, and then that should get me pretty close to where I need to be. So I feel pretty confident in the approach now. It's like, yeah, it gave me supreme confidence going into the show. I have like no stress now. I'm just like, I pretty much have this figured out. So, but yeah, I tried to document it all. Hopefully it was fun for you all to watch. So
I could tell you as someone that watched, it was very cool. It was very interesting. It was very informative, knowing that you are just calling this on the fly. Because I tried to, I wasn't gonna, I was never going to text you and like give you my input or whatever, like just to skew your idea. But I'm kind of following it, and I'm like, okay, like for how much food he's eating, he's still got a ways to go. It looks like early on, and then it's like,
you
man,
knew
it's
that.
still still looks like he's got a ways to go. Yeah, yeah, because I've seen
But
you.
then you
I
saw
mean,
the gym pics and it was
even
pretty close.
well, dude, I don't. I the Sunday gym pictures. I was like, I think that was when I had texted you about like what I said to you about the show and where I think you
Yeah.
could land. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I'll keep that private, but yeah. So that tells you what I thought of it. But also I can understand, besides just what the end result was or the end look, I can understand like where the growing confidence comes from because this was just a practice run, but you got kind of the oh shit, this isn't what I planned,
Yeah.
and you mastered that. So it was like a test on the fly, like a test where you didn't have the answers to the questions and you
Yeah.
have to do it on the fly. So seeing that, like, I feel like there's probably a lot more confidence in your eye looking at yourself, knowing even at this like kind of like depleted low body fat state that you have a really good feel for what you need right now, and it just seems like you're in a good groove. I know you're in a different situation in terms of like really calm and supportive home life, and it's exciting, dude. I was very interested and excited watching the whole process lay out for you, and then hearing you talk about it, it's very interesting. I was wondering if you were going to use some form of diuretic at some point, just because like I was wondering, like, man, like how is he going to pull this off with this much food, and not pulling some of the water back out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it looks like, I mean, are you, I'll pose it back to you. Like you said that you felt like that Sunday was maybe 90 or 95%. Like, had that been the stage, how would you have felt about it?
I would have felt really good with
Thrilled?
that. I would have been, yeah, astounded with that. It was
Yeah.
extremely happy with it. I ran about like 4 hard rounds of posing to really simulate like a
Yeah.
dog fight. And by about round 3, I was fading pretty good. And I think honestly, like the food was bang on there. I think a little more sodium and a little more fluid in that first feed of the day or right before the stage
How
would have
much
been
did you do that morning,
that
food
morning.
wise?
I had 10 ounces of coffee upon
Yep.
waking. And then I had 10 ounces with my first meal, which was that around 150 carbs. And then I had 6 ounces with some Gatorade in it right before the pump. So I
Okay.
think I could push that like right before stage up a little bit, I think would be good. But
Yeah.
yeah, other than that, man, it was good. It was really good.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. It's cool to see it because that's such a there's so many moving variables with that. You know what I mean? That's so different than your usual. Like for me, that's way different than I would ever do things, just point blank.
Well,
Um,
you kind of nailed on the head with like the feedback thing. Like my feedback loop is just like very in sync and like it's like very intuitive on and like just a gut feel of like I know what I need at this point.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so going through that, I have to ask you because I was wondering this myself, because I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes when that's what you need, right? And like it's the right thing to do, but you're sitting here like at 2.5 weeks out before like a big stage, big show, and like you're eating this cheesecake and all this stuff. Is there anything? No, and I don't even mean that like in a funny way. Is there anything from like a psychological perspective? This is more so what I'm wondering. Is there any feelings of guilt or doubt or anything like that you have to overcome? Because I am putting myself in your shoes and seeing this happening, and I'm like, man, even if I knew in my gut that this was right, there is some part of my psychology that I've realized now is probably a flaw that I would have to get over, but I would almost feel like I was like doing something wrong just because we've been taught bodybuilding in such a completely different way, right?
Yeah. No, I completely understand that. And I think probably like the first maybe few times I did something like this, I remember probably having some of those feelings. But it's such a trust now that like I know it's insane. And like I put that story up this week and I was like, this isn't even something I do with my clients. Like
Yeah.
this is a very unique case. It's just what works for me. Like I've put so much trial and error into like this that like I know it's crazy, but like I don't get those feelings really anymore because I've done it so many. There's been so many successful reps of it that it's like this is the formula. It's
Right.
it works. So
Yeah.
I don't know. And especially now that like I'm a little bigger, my body like it was hard for me to get bigger. So I think it's just kind of a we've heard of other bodybuilders that have you got like the Juan Morels and stuff. Like I'm not doing that, but you know like I can eat and get away with it.
Yeah.
I know that.
Well, it's not even get away with it, but it's like
It's
this
what I
is
need.
really what I need at this point. Like it's
Yeah.
not get away with it, like but that's I was wondering that because um I recognize it as like a flaw now that I would probably struggle with that if I were to coach myself. I don't know that I'd be as confident being so aggressive, but also, I'm thinking about it in a vacuum of just 2 weeks out and you're doing this, but you've been doing this all the way through. Like once you were in pretty good shape, you've trialed this a bunch of times. So then now it's just like, slight adjustments like, okay, you know what, Friday only wasn't enough. Like I have to kind of bleed this over into Saturday too. And then even it's like Sunday morning, because I know that you have, after some of these bigger feedings, like had gone the following day to the gym and just trained fasted because you were full enough.
Mhm.
And then even that Sunday, like still needed fluids and maybe even more fluids and a pretty big meal. So yeah, it's interesting. I think it's really cool to see. So I kind of wanted to just pull all that out of you and get as much detail from you as I could.
Yeah, man. It's like that Saturday, like you said, it was unexpected. I was like, oh shit. Like
Yeah,
I was pretty confident this was gonna work. So like
yeah,
it was a good game wrap. It was like a pregame, football game.
yeah.
It felt very realistic, which, yeah, I'm excited, man. It's I couldn't wait. I can't wait for it to be here, honestly.
So take me through some of the weights. Like Thursday morning before you start all this a low? Was Friday morning a low?
Yeah, it was about like I was it wasn't a low all prep, but it was a
Okay.
infinitely harder look than all
Yeah,
prep. It was actually
yeah.
3 pounds heavier than my lightest, but I had had some really quality training that week. And
Mm,
I honestly think my legs were tattered but the look was really hard and dry. And I knew I was very flat. And that was like my baseline zero because I'd ran the same depletion diet all week. So that was 230 even essentially. And then, let's see, I fed that day, and then Saturday morning was like 234 and a half. So I only came up
okay.
like, and that's after 10,000 calories. So like I was like, yeah, I'm not there yet, just off that. But then I, pulled the down and everything, and obviously lost a ton of that out of my gut. And that Saturday, I went with very like quality food sources that were just like extremely digestible all day. Like I was just rotating between. I think I just had cream of rice the entire day, like 6 meals of that before that one I described earlier with the biscuits and all that. But then I woke up Sunday at like 232 and a half or so. So I
Right on the
dropped it.
money.
Yeah, a couple pounds, dried that look off, and it was pretty, it was pretty spot on. And then, like I said, it was just needed. I just knew I needed one meal in me, and it was going to bring it to life. So I like that. I'm not going to use that as a proxy for 2.5 weeks from now because I am pushing for a little more conditioning.
Yeah.
Um, the but it's still great notes to have.
Yeah. Let me ask you something, just bodybuilder to bodybuilder now, like coaching stuff aside. I want to ask you about some of the posing that you do. Because I see in like your rear shots, you do more of this like Kenny Wallach where you like arch your back and kind of push your glutes out, right? Have you is I want to ask like why are you doing that? And if as a follow-up question, is it because you've already like practiced or played with the look where you like flex and kind of pull them underneath, and you just prefer the other look? Because I will say this, like, and just before I give you a chance to answer, from what I could see, the lines in your glutes are there, but it gives you crazy like lines and density in your hamstrings, and it fills your legs out a ton adductor wise when you do this.
Yeah, I mean that's the answer. My adductors,
Yeah.
my adductors are my best body part,
Yeah.
and my hamstrings are very dry. So when
Yeah.
I use more of a anterior pelvic tilt like that,
Yeah.
it just makes the hams super grainy. I'm able to get an incredible connection, and my glutes are going to be lean enough that in that position you're going to see feathering
You
throughout
still
this.
see him. No, I mean, even in those pictures Sunday after all that food and everything, um, you could see them, and they're gonna, and like you have to remember too, these judges like are not seeing you from a camera. Like they're front row, they got the best seat in the house. So when they see you walk out and you're walking sideways in front of them, they see the glute lines. When you're in your side shots, they see the glutes. Like they know what's there, and they know what low body fat looks like. I was just more so curious
Yeah.
because I knew it wasn't like really a conditioning thing. I just kind of fit. So when you flex your glutes and pull them under, do you feel like your adductors just like suck up and kind of leave a gap?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Majorly. Yeah. I mean, you gain, 5% glute condition, but you lose 6 inches off your whole entire leg.
Yeah.
So I love that complete filled in look. When I coached posing, it was always start with your hips high and land middle. Because if you start middle and you just get that thing under there like you're a dog taking a shit, like your adductors completely leave the chat. Your glutes look pretty decent. Hopefully they're
Right.
peeled,
Yeah.
but you got to have those adductors in that shot, in my opinion. But you don't want to Lucas Osladil it either and be in a full bikini pose.
Right.
You gotta start there, and then you got to dig
No,
into
there's
it.
a balance. It honestly like not to toot my horn, but I've been bodybuilding has been a huge part of my life for a very long time. I'd like to think that I have a pretty damn good eye at this point. That's the only reason really I could tell the difference and know that you were doing that,
Yeah,
because from the
there's
position, like from the positioning of it itself, it's not super obvious like to the untrained eye that you're even doing that. Like I see a lot of people when they do it, they're totally like just awkward looking, and you can see it in the lower back that it's cranked way back and everything. I don't think that you're giving that positioning away with anything other than the fact I'm like his adductors look enormous, like his legs look so complete. So it was just something because that's something else that is, I think, probably not the rule. I think that's probably more the exception when you see people that hit it like that. So yeah, it's cool. It's cool to hear. Um,
it's cool
man,
you picked up on that because it's
yeah.
not something
No,
you
I
just.
like the look on you on your physique. I like it a lot. Like because it
Thanks.
isn't obvious and funky looking. Like some people do it and you can tell they're not comfortable doing it and they're
Yeah.
still trying to do it. And it's like, man, you just lost 3 shots because you tried this weird thing. Um,
No.
no, but and like you said too, like 2.5 weeks from now, those glutes are going to be even more dug in to where like quote unquote you can get away with sacrificing a little bit of how they look
Yeah.
for a totally like powerhouse look from the waist down in terms of like muscularity. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's a good look for you, dude.
Appreciate.
um let's get into some questions. I got a couple that we can do. I thought this was from a friend of the show, Gabe. Thanks. Shout out to Gabe for sending this one. This one was good. He says, what is the thought process on training day versus rest day food? Do you do consistent daily meals 7 days a week, or is carb cycling, for example, higher food on weak point training days, lower food on a regular training day, and then lowest food on rest days?
Yeah, I like a difference between training and non-training day. If you to me having 3 meal plans or something like that for like high, medium, lows and stuff, it's just too convoluted and painstaking to really do. I mean, I don't think it's necessary. um like, yeah, you're gonna have a little more output on a leg day or something, but if you're in a surplus, it's kind of, that's a bit minutia to me. But I do like a difference between training and non-training day. Like the carbohydrates don't really need to be, sky high to me on, an off day. That's usually the calorie difference for me, and I typically will do about, maybe, depending on the size of the individual, 4 to 5. A big person like me, maybe I might have, like in my off season, I might have a 600 to 700 calorie difference even. I like to do that specifically in a pushing kind of phase for sure, because those low days I think help maintain a nice nutrient sensitivity as you push, and you're just chilling that day. So it's like, why are we cramming, why are we eating Rice Krispie treats and stuff, it's so yeah, I like the difference, but that's kind of the rationale there. I know some people just like to keep it consistent, and that's fine too, but I think it's a little better when you do it like that.
It's funny. Like I saw this question come in, so I had this like earlier in the day. I'm
Yeah,
not just answering this on the fly. And I thought through this, and like I've been like from the point that I started coaching to now, things evolve so much. And like you go through phases as a coach where you really are in on a certain philosophy or
for sure.
a little tool or something like that, or a certain setup. Um, and I think about it, and like, I have clients that have been set up for 4 years, and then I have clients that started a month ago. And it's like all of their stuff is so different. You know what I mean? And it's like,
Yeah,
it's just based on the person. But in general, like what are some of the big pillars that he asked about? Absolutely think rest day food can, and in most cases should be lower than
yeah,
training day food. Um, and I think there's an application for in both settings, like in off season when you're pushing it
right.
up. And I think you can get away almost with your rest days being like where you dig in a little bit harder
I don't eat
in
on my
contest
rest days,
prep.
bro. I eat protein.
Yeah. Yeah,
I've
no,
had
exactly.
chicken, green beans, and that's it today.
Exactly. So like you're digging in extra on those rest days. Like your rest days are essentially low days in contest prep. I like that a lot as I've grown as a bodybuilder myself and realize like how, like if you do off season right, how uncomfortable it can be with how much food that you have to eat. So like having the rest day food being lower or meal frequency being lower on a rest day,
Love.
like GI, blood sugar, all that stuff that you mentioned is great, but it's also just mental. Like it's like, all right, this is a little bit of a break today. Like, um,
Agreed.
where like for most of my time working with Justin Compton, it's 7 meals on training days and then 6 on rest days. And it's like, man, I wake up on most of those training days and it doesn't matter how early I get up because I go to bed early, I get up early. I
That's
I
such
feel
a
like I'm behind. I feel like like fuck. I already should have been eating. Whereas on those rest days, I wake up and I'm like, okay, I can breathe. Like this is not the end of the world. That if I slept in until 8:30 on a rest day, like, um, so I like that. On the point of like high, medium, low, I totally agree with you. And then I also have a different perspective on it. I agree that it's not necessary in 99.9% of cases. I believe that it's probably going to cause people more stress than any positive outcome differential that it's going to create. I think in the very small, for me, like knowing that I'm a different type of like I'm not, this is my whole life. Um, I had an off season that I did this where it was kind of like a Justin Harris setup where, rest days were my lowest days. I had a couple of regular training days and then on like high, like legs, back, whatever. Um, those days would be like super, super high. I think that there is some benefit to it. I think it could probably be described as like 1% maybe. So it's like for 99% of people, even the regular competitive bodybuilder that like has other things going on, other responsibilities, a full-time job that they have to go to, kids, a family, like, all this stuff, like don't make someone do that. It's probably just too much.
Yeah, I'd feel bad doing that unless they were like you or something. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Like unless they were like, dude, what else can I do? Like
I live in my
what
basement, my
what
body.
more? Right. All I do is bodybuilding, dude. Like give me something else. Um, but in those situations, I do like it to bring up weaker body parts because for me at least, it's not just a matter of like, okay, it's a little more food. It's how the food is biased. So for me, like I will look at um, if someone does want to do this or asked to do this or whatever, um, I use it as an opportunity then to bring in insulin and I'll have them run
Okay.
insulin all throughout the day, a combination of Lantus and Humalog. And then also it's not so like the food is going to be more, but it's going to be distributed totally differently where there's no little to no added fat the entire day because we're using so much insulin. And you're just going to shove carbs and even your protein is probably going to come down a little bit just to make like GI room for all the carbs that you're going to eat. Um,
I'm glad you said that because that's something I failed to mention that I did differently this week, which worked really well.
what's that?
Go ahead. Just like ate no protein on those load days.
Oh, right. Yeah. No, I
Yeah,
noticed that you were
I
doing
saw
where
that.
it's like trace, like,
Yeah,
15 grams or whatever. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, no, but on those days, definitely, because I'm only thinking about doing this with somebody once or twice a week. And you know what I mean? If you're a
you're
normal
still
training
getting
day for you, dude, if a normal training day for you is, 600 grams of carbs and then you're doing 1200 grams of carbs, like, bro, I'm not worried about your protein being a little bit lower. Like,
yeah.
um, but I have seen that work. Now, whether that's just like more intramuscular swelling and water, like, okay, like muscles predominantly water. Like, I think that there is something to that because I have seen with myself and some of the people that I've helped do this, that weak body part does come up. And yeah, like, you throw more volume at it or get more precise with the training, it all plays into it. But um, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So I have done it. I have done it that way. I will say, like, for most lifestyle people, I will just have the same thing. And unless they mention like needing
Same.
variety or like the excitement of a couple different diet iterations keeping them on track, like I'm probably just going to have it the same every day. What is the difference, like if I'm going to have your average bodybuilder that has a training day and a rest day diet? What's the difference? You kind of mentioned it, like if depending on the tools that I'm using, like if I have somebody doing post workout cereal or pre workout Rice Krispie treats or, you
Yeah.
know, honey throughout the day or some of these different things, like on a training day, all that stuff's coming out on a rest day. And you're just going to eat like, you know, eggs and bread in the morning and then meat and rice 5 or 6 times. Like,
That probably results in around that calorie point that I've mentioned.
right. No, it totally does. Because I know for me personally, like my difference between rest day and training day is like I have a immediate post workout meal of whey and cereal that just comes out totally on my rest days. And then in my intra, it's a pretty heavy loaded intra. And that just comes out if I'm not training. So
Your post
yeah,
workout's got to be every bit of 200 carbs, right?
yeah, 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 and like 50 protein, so
All the
um,
cereal.
yeah. Um, I'm looking forward to eating much less cereal. I'll tell you that. I'm looking forward to eating much less in general. Um, no, but that was a good one. I think and that should be like a staple. I think just because you don't need it. Like your output
You're,
is going to be way less, even if
you're
you're
gonna
someone
get
that,
fat.
yeah,
Period.
yeah, like even if you are someone that's counts your steps or tracks them and you're doing basically the same output every day from just walking, from a training perspective, like you don't need some of these sugars or some of these fast acting fun carbs. Like you could do without them, and it will set you up to be probably have a little bit more runway, I would think, in the off season, like duration wise. So, um, okay, so here's one kind of a coaching question. So you're going to get a new client. You're starting with a new client,
All right.
and this person's a total beginner. Would you rather them be overly fat or overly skinny?
Skinny.
Yeah.
What's their goals? Give me a
They want to be a
hypothetical.
bodybuilder. They want to be a big bodybuilder.
Oh, skinny.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Cause
Why?
I can teach, cause they just don't know how to eat and they
Right.
don't know how to train. And
Right.
it's going to be much easier than having to deal with someone who has a propensity to be fat and that holds water and is really hard to get in shape and has loose skin. And, that's a
Mm.
nightmare. They start
The
and
loose skin is the loose skin could change it all. So I will say as a caveat, that is the difference between like an objectively right and wrong answer. Because you'll ruin your bodybuilding career before it ever starts with loose skin. Um, I don't know if it's because I started skinny and I just feel like my run was hard and long. I almost feel like I would rather start with somebody that was fat for the exact opposite reason that you talked about. This person does know how to eat. So I just need to teach them how to train and they're going to be big, dude. Like like if anything, I'm going to teach them how to train and just like pull body fat off of them. And this is maybe going to be the only time. Don't get me started on any other scenarios, but it only maybe the only time where this person is going to become
it
more
would,
muscular
it
in
would
a
be,
deficit,
it
right?
would, it would be. But we get to skip that step with the skinny guy. We
We
just
do get
start,
to skip it, but then it's like I just feel like
it's more of a uphill battle.
it's so uphill. Like I think about starting over from where I was, and I am so grateful that I like didn't know what I didn't know back then because I don't know that I would have been able. Like I don't know. I look back at younger me, and I'm pretty often amazed that I didn't give up. To be totally honest with you,
Sure.
because it just seems like I just think back to how I looked and where I was with things. And I'm like, man, like, I can't believe that in this moment, looking at an old photo of myself, I'm like, I can't believe in this moment, I didn't realize how much further I had to go and how difficult it was going to be. Like, I look back at some of these photos of me and I'm like, man, I can remember like tangibly feeling jacked in this picture where it's like delusion was the only thing that kept me going.
Hey, it's powerful.
Yeah. Um, no, I thought that was a good one though.
That's an interesting question.
I could see skinny though because so this is again like I'm biased towards it, but I was not like skinny ripped. I was like skinny fat. Like I was tall and thin, but I didn't have like I knew kids that were like thin and like we would change for gym or whatever, and they'd take their shirt off, and it was like crazy abs and obliques and shit. And like that was not me at all. Like I didn't get abs. I didn't have a set of visible abs until the first time I dieted for a bodybuilding show, like at 8 weeks out or something. Like I was like, oh fuck, now I have abs. Like
That's great.
I didn't even know they were there, dude. Like I started to doubt whether or not they were ever going to come in.
They existed.
So like knowing that like if the skinny person was like kind of ripped looking, then definitely you'd rather start with that person. Like
Yeah.
because then it's just like, man, I could just teach you how to train really hard and shove a ton of food at you. And if you can eat it, like you're gonna look crazy.
That's what I was envisioning. So the
Yeah.
skinny fat. So there's a lot of things to consider with this
Yeah.
question.
I also when I read this, I also the first thing that popped into my mind is how tall is the person?
Fair. Are they 7 foot?
Right? Because if they're 5'8" and
Yeah.
they're fat, like I can make that person look pretty fucking big pretty quick.
Yeah. Fair. Yeah.
Um,
We need a real life example to answer. Sorry.
yeah, no, it's interesting. Um,
Send in pics. We'll tell you.
yeah. This guy asked for dudes under 200 pounds, is the upper lower split the best?
Did you say under 200 or
He
over
said
200?
under, yeah, he wrote in under 200.
I mean, there's no split that's designated to your weight. It's just it all works.
This is the
So
scrawny guy split.
yeah, you can't graduate into this one until you're 200. It's don't you're thinking too much. Whoever asked this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's train hard. Upper lower is great. I love like a upper lower off, upper lower off. Like that's a cool setup. It's good. But if you want to do every body part once a week, 4 days a week, do it hard, and that's going to work too. And push pull legs will work as well. So it's whatever. So yeah, just
What do you prefer to run? What have you like when you think of your periods of best progress, what have you run split
So
wise?
I was like a push pull legs guy for a very very
A
long
long
time.
time. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But man, the best progress. You saw the picture I put up. 2.5 years of progress here.
Yeah.
That's been 4 days a week training for predominantly every body part once a week, and training it extremely hard.
So how
And
are you breaking that up? Just for conversation's sake. Is it like
yeah,
chest tries, back buys, legs and arms or what?
yeah. So like
Or
right now I'm
shoulders?
doing 5 days, but like whenever I was whenever I was doing that, it was back by itself to start the week, and then
Okay.
it was legs to end the week. Let me see. I'm trying to remember what was next after back. It was push, it was chest and shoulders after that.
Yeah.
Uh, Man, where I got to pull up one of these. I'm like blanking. But I ran that really long off season, and that's been my favorite. Man.
I'll tell you right now, one of my favorite splits, period, is, a split is just an organization of how you're training and of your volume. But for me personally, and I put a ton of people on this, is basically pull, push off, legs, arms off, and then repeat.
Yeah, I like it. I like that setup. I
Or
use setup like
basically
that a
like
lot.
back and then like chest and shoulders off, and then full legs and then arms as their own day and then off.
That's solid. Yeah, I found this like I was doing delts, tries, and forearms in day one, and then back, chest, biceps, and legs.
Okay.
So those were my four
Yeah.
days.
Um,
Just heavy.
Interestingly enough, I hope that upper lower is not just for dudes under 200 pounds because I just started upper lower.
Just starting upper lower.
Yeah.
So are you doing like a posterior lower and then an anterior lower? Or are they both kind of full lowers?
They're both kind of full, which is a new thing for me. All of this is new.
What are your off days in between?
So I do Monday I'm off. I'll
Yeah.
do upper quad base lower. So that's Tuesday, Wednesday, off Thursday, upper kind of hamstring base lower Saturday, and then upper again on Sunday. So I'm doing three uppers. It's not rotating where it's like upper lower off. Um, it's three. It's 5 set days. Three of them are upper, um, and then the two like basically full leg days.
It's a lot.
It is a lot, but like if you saw the per session like volume and how things are distributed, I feel good about it. A lot of
Solid.
times I feel very unsettled with I've always done my own training and my own programming, and there's a lot of times like especially off season wise where I just feel unsettled, where I always feel like something is being shortchanged in favor of something else.
Sure.
um, and so I feel pretty like, especially going into like I'm cruising now and then I'm going to begin a prep, and I feel like everything's getting pretty equal love. Like,
Awesome.
I did my more hamstring glute dominant leg day on Saturday, and today is Monday, and every part of my legs is still sore. My calves are
Yeah.
still sore, my quads are still sore, my ass is still sore. So it's like, this is probably a pretty good setup. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because it's pretty low volume, like per session per body part, it's very low volume. And so
Have to.
what it's allowed me to do is bring back some of my like let it rip like Dorian type training, where it's like for the most part it's mostly just top set and back off set, which I have not done probably since 2018.
I do 1 to 2 sets on every movement.
Yeah. And
It's like
I had been doing 3, 4, even 5 for the most of the last 3 or 4 years, and I've made that, like that's when I've made most of the progress that I've made size wise.
well,
um
everything works, man.
Everything where I Joey Cavalier is Joey Quads on Instagram. He recently went pro at North Americans super
Yeah,
heavyweight.
yeah,
I did a podcast with him one time, and he coined this phrase that I got to give him credit for. He said, "Everything works until it doesn't."
I love that. Yeah, yeah. I
Like
mean,
it's you're gonna run into a point you can't do something forever. You're going to run into a point at some point where
you
it
got to
probably
pivot.
needs to change either for your mental state psychologically to still be excited about it, or it's just physically not working anymore. But like you said, everything works. So like to this guy, long story short, does upper lower the best for someone under 200 pounds? I don't know. It depends. Like, what's your schedule like? Can you only train 4 days a week? Because if so, you could train like Austin mentioned before. You could just do upper lower, upper lower. Um, I can remember the majority. My first cycle that I did, like steroid cycle, was like in an attempt to get big, like off season, quote unquote, even though I hadn't competed yet. And I trained full body 3 days a week, and then I did like arms on Saturday
Yep,
and
yep.
I
Work
got big. Like I got noticeably bigger. Like
full body splits are awesome, man. It's all about
yeah,
how much volume you're doing and managing that properly. Put it in
that's it.
whatever format you want, but like just look at it as there's all these pieces. You can arrange them however you'd like, but that's the big thing. It's just train what you can recover from.
Train what you can recover from, and train what you're excited to go do. I think is a huge part of it. Like
Fun.
like for a lot of us, this is probably the best part of our day or one of them. So it's like, man, you need to look forward to this. Like I could tell you I trained push pull legs like you for a long time. And I got to a point where I just was like bored, like just super bored, like having to get all these body parts in and everything. And it sounds counterintuitive because now I'm doing upper lower where it's a little bit of everything, but it's something new. So I'm like, you know what, this is cool. I'm excited about this. And I feel like upper body wise, like my shoulders, my arms have kind of disappeared in preps before. Um, and I think that I'm hoping that there's going to be something to the idea of like just constantly stimulating them in training.
Frequency. Yeah,
Yeah. So
I'm with it, man.
we'll see.
I'm doing
So
something. I'm doing that kind of right now, and I like the frequency because it's like upper lower off legs, or I'm sorry, it's like push pull off legs, push pull. So it's like pretty often that I'm hitting it.
yeah,
The upper stuff, the legs, I don't need to train twice a week, but
no, definitely not. Um, and I had felt that way for a while, and I did exactly what you did, and it was awesome. I feel like that was when things started to click for me, like upper body wise, where it was like, oh shit, like things have started to even out, and I look kind of symmetrical now. You know what I mean? So,
oh, yeah.
um, quick one: do you have any weird or funny prep habits?
I feel like I act so bizarre in prep. Like it's like you do the weirdest shit in the world. Uh oh man, I don't know. You're just in la la land most of the time.
Yeah,
Habits, weird. I know
I'll give you
there's
an
a
example of one. We have a spoon here that's different than all of the other ones, and it's
yeah.
got like a bamboo handle, and I
That's
will use that for every meal, the entire prep.
yeah. I mean, I use baby spoons and
That's a
forks.
good idea. Yeah, that's a great
Yeah,
idea.
love, love.
Makes you feel like you're eating more than you are.
Yeah, no, for sure. It makes you slow down. Man, yeah, I know there's 50 million of these, but they're not coming to me because they're just normal. But
Because they just make up your entire day. Yeah.
that's all. It's just like meal by meal, you're just occupying yourself in some form or fashion.
Yeah. Another quick one, and then we'll go because it's almost been an hour. Um, how often should I be posing in prep? What tricks make you feel most prepared for the stage?
How often you should be posing prep? I would pose like at the latest 12 weeks out, start hitting like 3 solid sessions a week. And when I say session, that might look like 4 to 5 rounds of the mandatories, and you might start with those at like 5 to 8 second hold, and like increase that week by week is what I would encourage doing up until you're even doing like 15s, potentially 20-second holds. And those, that amount of sessions is pretty good, like 3 to 4 if you're really getting in there and you're working,
Yeah.
like we just talked about. Or like a good thing I like, what I personally do is after each upper body day, so that's 4 times a week, I go in, I do every bit of like 3 to 4 rounds. I don't do it on legs because I can't pose for shit after legs. So four
Right. You're
times
not
a
going to
week.
see anything.
Yeah, no, it's pointless. Literally, I would just get upset. So that's what I would suggest. Pose a lot, work on your posing endurance, work on all of it. Yeah, what was the second part of this question?
Like tricks or tips to make you feel most prepared for
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I like that question. So the biggest thing is get ready early. And
Yeah.
that's going to give you the most supreme confidence if you're shredded early and you know that, like, that's the big one. Give yourself proper time. Um, if you can do something like I did this week and run like some trial peaking, if you and your coach can do something like that, that's a great way to kind of have some game reps. That makes you feel really good. Yeah, other than that, talk to, manage your expectations and understand if it's your first one or something, talk to some peers and understand kind of what you're getting yourself into. But yeah, that's about it. Just be ready. That's the big thing, is get
That's
ready.
it.
And
It changes the whole experience. Like
yeah,
show day and the
you're
whole
gonna hate
thing. Like,
it.
yeah. Um, I think your advice for how often you should, like, for me, I think posing post upper body is a big thing. Like being in that habit where you're pumped, but also you're like maybe a little tired, or yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you're maybe a little mentally tired too, where it's like you almost feel like a little down or a little defeated, and it's like, nope, I got to go hit these shots and be excited about it. Like, I think that's good. I think too, it depends your frequency, just the same as training. Your frequency should kind of depend on like the length and intensity of your session. So if you're doing 5 rounds, and as a bodybuilder we have like 11 shots to hit, um probably 3 or 4 times a week is more than enough. um if you're doing 1 or 2 rounds, that should probably, like, especially the closer you get, that should probably be an everyday thing then. um
Yeah.
for me, um, I've kind of done it all. I mean, I've overdone it. This past prep, I probably didn't do enough. If I had to look back on it, and be honest with myself, it's something that I plan to be better with this coming year. And what I'll probably do for the majority of the prep is set aside, like you said, 3 or 4 set times. A couple of them will probably be post upper body. A couple of them might be after all my meals, like with a full stomach. So I learned to control that here at home. And I'll do 3 or 4 times a week. And then I wouldn't be surprised with my manic brain if at 4 weeks out I decide I'm going to start posing every day. Um, that's just how it goes. But I think a couple tricks for feeling like most prepared on the stage in terms of like actually posing. I think at some point you have to go, if you've never been to or competed in a show, you have to go see a show.
That's a good.
Um, you have to go see a show so that you feel the energy and you feel the pace, because it's probably a lot quicker than what you think. And then because of that, a tip that I do, I'm 11 years into competitive bodybuilding and I still do this. I will put a pair of headphones on, usually buds, because I don't want them to interfere with anything that I'm doing. And I will pull up a YouTube video of a national level show. And I will just listen to the audio of the head judge calling the shots, because then I will just simulate being on that stage with them. So if he calls, all the quarter turns, and then for 35 seconds, he's saying 17 and 22 switch, 16 and 19 switch, I'm holding my front relax firm as if I'm on that stage. And then when he gets into the pace of calling the shots, front double bicep, front lat spread, I'm letting someone else dictate the pace. So I think that could be something that makes you feel like you're prepared for a stage atmosphere. And then the most recent one that I have heard or that I thought was valuable, I can't take credit for this. My fiance's posing coach, Alyssa, she's a wellness pro down here. She told this to Kelsey, who's my fiance. She said that at a certain point, um, she is going to pose next to Kels. while they practice. That way she can feel what it feels like to have someone next to her while she's posing, which I thought was cool because I had never really thought of that, to be honest with you.
It
Um,
changes things.
for sure. And I think and that's for wellness she's talking about. I think that's even more important or more relevant for bodybuilding because I have been competing for 11 years. I've probably done 11 or 12 shows or something like that. I would say probably half of them I would turn around for my back double bicep and I'm fighting elbows with somebody. And then it never turns out how you want it to because you're worried about where you are in relation to other people. So, practicing with people around you or in tight quarters can definitely help, I think.
I love that YouTube video idea. That's
Mm,
really solid stuff, man. That's good.
yeah.
Yeah,
Man, that was an idea that I got going into my first show because I had never been to a show before I competed.
I love
So
that.
I was like, man, how fast are they going to call these shots? I need some type of practice. You know what I mean? So I remember listening to, my first show was 2014. I remember listening to the 2012 Nationals on YouTube with Steve Weinberger calling all the poses. Gentlemen, relax. You know, that's my best Big Steve impression.
That was good. That
No,
was
but it is a good pace because he doesn't fuck around either. Or I should say it is a good idea because
like
he'll tell people back on the line, like 17 back on the line. Um, and then if you're in a class where there's some shit going on like that and he's yelling at somebody, you have to just stand there and hold your front relaxed firm.
chill.
Um, and especially like I'm a guy, I know that you have bolt variations, so that helps big time. I'm someone I pull somewhat of a vacuum in my front relax, which man, I better be like winded
Well, that's
conditioning
why I
wise.
have a second option because
Yeah, but it looks good on you, dude. It looks good on you. I said this to Kelsey the other day when you were posting all your photos. I was like, because she had mentioned that she feels like our physiques are similar,
yeah,
and sh I'm clicking through your shots and she's like, man, it's almost bizarre how similar the two of you look. And I'm like, yeah, but one difference, look at this. Like he can pull his front shots up and look really good and really big with the vacuum, but then you can crunch your abs, which is huge on stage. Like if you do get in a situation like that where he's moving people around and you're up there for 30 seconds, like, man, I'm just holding my breath and praying I don't pass out on stage. You can blow it all out and crunch and then pull it back up if you want to. Which I think I just lose my width when I crunch it down.
yeah,
I
it
didn't.
takes away.
I objectively don't feel that way about after seeing your photos. Both your front relaxed, I think you could pull it off, and I think your front double, which is even harder for me. If I crunch down to my front double, dude, I look like I just started working out. So, props to you. So,
I appreciate
I think that's a good spot to wrap it up here. You want to plug anything or say anything before we go?
it. Nah, I'm good.
All right.
It's meal time.
Yeah. All right. All right. It's time to eat. So, for Austin Brown, I'm Joseph Percher. This was the One More Rep podcast. And until next time, guys, we are out.